Hey guys, tonight we slip into the boots, cracked leather, crusted with ash of someone you've probably seen in memes, but wouldn't want to trade places with. You're the plague doctor. That's right, the beak-masked figure whose very silhouette whispers run. It's the year 1348, and the world around you is coughing itself to death. Cities reek of incense ash and something else much worse, hope, curdling in the summer heat. You stand at the edge of Florence. Behind you, a dust-choked road from Pisa. Before you, a city under siege by an invisible, brutal enemy. The guards hesitate to let you in at first. Can you blame them? You're dressed like a horror story. Long black robe gloves like a butcher's, and that famous mask, its hooked nose stuffed with rosemary, lavender, and a touch of mint. Supposedly to filter disease. More likely it's just to help you breathe through the stench of bodies. You enter, not exactly to applause. The first thing that hits you isn't the heat. It's the sound low moans, prayers on loop, the clatter of a wheelbarrow full of limbs and blankets that once held people. You try not to look at the faces, but one eye follows you. Swollen, glazed. Too late. You pass frescoes fading under soot, vendors selling onions like they're medicine, and rats, plenty of rats darting from alley to gutter. It's not the warm welcome one might expect, but hey, you're not here for a vacation. You're here to stop death. Or at least to slow it down enough to write a few names in a ledger. In your satchel, vinegar-soaked rags, a bone-handled lancet, dried marigold petals, and a book of notes scribbled from old Roman and Arab physicians. You're not exactly licensed. Medieval doctors are more freelance than certified. Still, you've survived longer than most. That counts for something, right? So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your current location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when people are listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're summoned within minutes of arrival. A boy no older than 12 has collapsed in a baker's shop. His mother insists it's just exhaustion. His blackened fingertips say otherwise. The baker's shop is hot. Yeast and yeast rot. You kneel beside the boy. He's barely breathing. Purple swellings bloom along his neck like terrible roses. His mother weeps into her apron, and you try to speak comfort. But the truth is, this is your first patient of the day, and he'll probably be gone before the next. You open your satchel. Lavender to your nose. Mask tightened. Hands steady. You lance the bubo, praying to Hippocrates and whatever gods you half believe in. The boil hisses. The smell hits harder than any perfume in your beak. The mother faints. Smart. You do what you can, clean the wound, whisper advice that mostly amounts to pray and keep him warm. The family pays you in eggs. You nod and pretend it's a fair trade. Money at this point means very little. The dead don't spend. Outside, the bells toll. Another soul lost. You've stopped counting. No one's left to ring the bells by hand. They've rigged ropes to rock with the wind. You walk on past a line of corpses covered in linen sheets. One has no feet, another no head. Rumors say bodies are being stolen, some for study, some for more sinister rituals. Historians still argue whether such dark trades were myth or market. Either way, you don't ask questions anymore. You reach your lodging, a storage room above a tanner's shop. It reeks. You light a candle. A rat skitters. It's your third roommate. You sit on your bed of straw and wonder how many more days you can keep this up. Florence is only your first stop. Naples is worse, they say. Marseille gone quiet. You think of your childhood, how your mother used to rub crushed herbs on your chest when you were ill. You chuckle. You're now the one crushing herbs, just with far less success. Your fingers ache. Your knees creak. The mask strap has rubbed your cheeks raw. You remove it slowly. The air tastes of ash and sweat and fear. You look out the window. Smoke drifts up from chimneys and pyres alike. You hear a scream, then silence, and you realize something awful. You're not afraid of dying anymore. You're afraid of becoming just another masked figure, unremembered, buried in a pit. No one will mark. You wake to scratching, not in the walls on your door. 3 slow scrapes. A pause. Then a frantic knock, like someone trying not to wake death, but urgently needing to beat him to your bedside. You rise bleary-eyed and fumble for your gloves. No one touches your bare skin, not anymore. A woman stands outside, barely holding herself upright. Her dress is stained with soot and something darker. She clutches a bundle wrapped in linen, trembling. "Please," she whispers. "My husband." You follow her through alleys that smell of vinegar and defeat. Rats scatter before your boots, bold enough now to move in daylight. The bundle you notice is moving. They live or lived above a cobbler's shop. She leads you through a stairwell littered with bread crusts, broken sandals, and something you sincerely hope isn't a human tooth. When you enter the room, the man is already gone. You know it by the silence. But he's still sitting upright, eyes glassy, mouth frozen mid-word. She doesn't seem to notice. You ask about his symptoms, when the fever started, how fast the swelling came, what color the blood was. She answers like someone reciting bad poetry. Through her days, she presses the bundle into your arms. "I don't know what to do with her," she says. You peel the cloth back. A baby, sleeping, or not. You check. Breathing faint but steady. The child stirs and opens clouded blue eyes. You don't flinch, but you do whisper a prayer. For both of them, you instruct the mother burn everything touched by the father. Clothes, blankets, even the mattress. She nods, but you can tell she won't. Not out of defiance, out of exhaustion. You've seen it a dozen times now. Hope makes people stupid. Fear makes them cruel. The plague makes them both. Downstairs, the cobbler eyes you suspiciously. "That mask," he mutters, "just for show." You don't answer. Mostly because you're not sure anymore. It's worth noting the beak mask wasn't always terrifying. At least that's what later historians like to say. The long, bird-like nose was originally stuffed with herbs to filter miasma, that supposedly poisonous air blamed for spreading the plague. But modern scholars argue whether the mask offered any real protection or just gave the illusion of control. Either way, it's starting to feel like theater. And you're the star in a one-man tragedy. You walk back through Florence, past shuttered windows and chalk-marked doors. One of them bears a crude symbol, an eye with a line through it. Don't look inside. You're tempted. You resist. You pass a square where a friar is preaching. "Repent," he cries. This is God's punishment. Around him, people kneel and sob. One woman beats her chest with a stone. You watch for a moment. Then a child vomits into the fountain, and you move on. Another soul added to your list. A boy runs by barefoot and giggling with a dead pigeon in hand. You try not to think about what he plans to do with it. By midday, you've seen 3 deaths, 1 exorcism, and a man claiming garlic will keep the plague away if you rub it on your ankles. You resist the urge to try it. Barely. You stop at a modest home with lavender sprigs tied to the door. A good sign. Inside, a middle-aged woman is boiling water. "I heard you helped the butcher's wife," she says. "Can you see my sister?" The sister is curled on a cot. Her breathing is wet and shallow like a drowning cat. You ask the usual questions, but what grabs your attention isn't the cough. It's the map drawn in charcoal on the wall. Dots and names. Crossed out houses. She's been tracking deaths. A proto-epidemiologist. You ask who drew it. The sick woman opens her eyes and whispers, "Me." You study the map. The pattern is clear. The deaths are spreading in spirals. From bakeries, from butchers, from wells. Water, you ask? She nods. We share a bucket. You feel a tingle of alarm. Not fear that's long burned out. Just the faint pulse of knowing. You might have found a clue. Historians still argue whether plague spread primarily through fleas-infected water or airborne means. The answer is probably yes. All of them. The real tragedy is that your insight will die with you and won't resurface for centuries. You leave a note in your book. Mark a few addresses. Say a few words to the woman who's already halfway to wherever plague victims go. Then you step outside. The sun has turned orange. The bell tolls again. You glance upward, instinctively checking for signs of smoke. You see instead a row of vultures perched on the cathedral roof. Of course, even the birds are waiting. You trudge home. Your boots leave black tracks in the dust. You try not to look behind you. Your room smells like despair. You open the window, close it again. You remove your gloves. They stick. The leather is starting to rot at the fingertips. You light a candle and write in your ledger. Day 6. 12 deaths. 1 child saved. Unconfirmed case from shared well. Add to hypothesis. Then in smaller letters, hands shaking more today. You lie down and stare at the rafters. For the first time, you think about what happens after. Not after the plague, after you. Who takes your body? Who writes your name? Who wears the mask next? You don't like the answers. You wake to a new sound. Not moaning, not screaming. Something worse. Laughter. It bubbles up from the alley below your window, manic and wild. You rise groggy and cold and peer outside. A group of children is skipping in a circle, singing a tune that loops endlessly. Ring around the roses, a pocket full of posies. Ashes, ashes, we all fall. They collapse in giggles. You do not laugh. You've seen too many bodies fall for real. The door bangs open. It's a courier young, reeking of sweat and fear. Doctor, he pants, the mayor wants you. It's urgent. Of course it is. You gather your satchel. Check your tools. Gloves, mask, herbs, charm pouch, still missing. You wonder again who took it. Maybe the cobbler's wife. Maybe the rat. Hard to say these days. You walk with the boy through narrow streets that pulse with dread. Every corner seems to hold another body covered in a sheet, or not covered at all. Florence is bloated with silence now. And rot. The boy leads you to a townhouse with rich red shutters and a painted lion on the door. The city crest. In here, he says. Inside, the mayor sits in a high-backed chair flanked by 2 guards who keep their distance. He looks pale. His wig is askew. On the table, a map, a goblet of wine, and 3 coins. That's it. I need answers, he says. The people are panicking. You resist a chuckle. The people have been panicking for weeks, sir. You trace your gloved finger along the map. You point to neighborhoods you've been to, how the illness seemed to spiral out from the docks, then skip like spilled ink into the merchant district. You think this is organized, the mayor asks. You hesitate. No, you say slowly, but it's not random either. He nods, then leans in. Do what you must, but don't say a word about this to the priests. You raise an eyebrow. Politics and pestilence, how very medieval of him. As you leave, a servant hands you a pouch. Payment. Inside dried figs and a single silver coin, better than eggs. You head toward the riverbank. Rats scatter. Again. Florence has a rhythm now. Morning new dead. Midday open fires. Evening fevered prayers. The plague has made time irrelevant, but everyone still fears nightfall. You stop at a fountain where a woman is sobbing. Her baby, swaddled tightly, doesn't move. She rocks it anyway, whispering lullabies through cracked lips. You don't interrupt. Some moments are beyond repair. A man approaches as you walk away. His hat is wide-brimmed, feathered too flamboyant for these times. He eyes you with curiosity. "Doctor," he says, "how many have you saved?" You don't answer. He smiles. "That few." You glance at his gloves, embroidered. Useless. Decorative. His face is too clean. No ash under his nails, no lines from the mask strap. He's not one of you. He extends a card. Blank. "You'll want to remember me," he says, and disappears into the crowd. You slip the card into your satchel, then check to make sure your scalpel is still there. It is. For now. You continue on to the granary. Rumors say infected grain is being hoarded there. The gates are chained shut. You speak to a guard who claims no one's been inside in days. You press a coin into his palm. He looks at it, then back at you. "Not enough," he says. You sigh. You offer the figs. He pockets them. 5 minutes. Inside, the smell hits you first mildew dust and something sweeter, decay. You find sacks torn open, rat droppings, flecks of blood, then a cough from above. You look up. A man is nestled in the rafters, wrapped in a cloak. He holds a candle and a piece of stale bread. "I have nowhere else," he whispers. You don't argue. You just ask, "How long have you been here?" 3 days, he replies. "Symptoms?" He shakes his head. "Not yet." You tell him to stay put, as if he has other plans. Outside, the guard asks, "Dead?" "Not yet." The guard shrugs. "Then he's not my problem." You keep walking. Your path takes you past the old university. The doors are barred. A faded notice hangs crookedly. Classes suspended. Faculty presumed lost. You chuckle bitterly. Knowledge dies quietly. In truth, universities were among the first places to shut down. Scholars fled. Some took plague with them, unknowingly spreading it across borders. Historians still argue whether intellectuals were heroes, cowards, or just very bad at quarantine. You duck into an alley to rest, and that's when you see it, a painted mural, new, wet. A skeleton wearing your mask, holding a rose in one hand and a scythe in the other. Beneath it, scrawled in charcoal, "The doctor brings death." You stare at it for a long time. The artist is wrong, you think. You're not death. You're what crawls in after. You return to your room late. The rat is gone. You don't miss it. You unwrap a piece of dry bread. Chew without tasting. You think about the man in the rafters, the woman with the bundle, the laughing children. You think about the card. You pull it out again, still blank. Except now, faintly, a single word has appeared scratched in with something sharp. Soon. You light another candle. You don't sleep. Morning comes, not with sunlight, but with smoke. You cough awake, though, whether from the thick air or the creeping ache in your throat, you can't quite say. You pull on your gloves with hands that tremble more than yesterday. That's not ideal. Outside, the air has a peculiar sharpness. A new fire. You follow the scent like a bloodhound in reverse, toward destruction rather than away. It leads you to the butcher's district, where a row of carts and stalls are ablaze. You approach cautiously. A soldier stands at the edge, spear planted in the dirt, looking as though he might drop from exhaustion. "What happened?" you ask through your mask. "Burning tainted meat," he says. "Orders from the bishop." You raise an eyebrow beneath your beak. "The bishop, of course." You glance at the flames. Among the sizzling sausages and split ribs, you see something darker, smaller, bones. The soldier avoids your eyes. "There were rats in the barrels," he says. "Might have been more than rats." You don't press him. Truth in these days is often half whispered, half denied. You walk on, but you're uneasy. Fire means control, at least that's what the city tells itself. Burn what's diseased. Purge the evil. It's not working, but it's something to do. And people, especially dying ones, will do anything for a sense of control. A girl tugs on your robe near the well. 8, maybe 9. Red-faced and barefoot. "My papa says you carry the plague in your beak," she says bluntly. You kneel to her level. No, I carry dried oranges. She narrows her eyes. I don't like oranges. You stand again. She bolts. The well behind her is roped off. A sign says, unsafe. You wonder how many families read it, believed it, and then drank anyway. You spend the next hour visiting homes near the leather tanners. That smell acid and hide covers the stench of rot, if only barely. In one hut, you meet a man with a pulse so weak, it might just be memory. His daughter's 16 resolute fans him with a chicken feather. He's been like this since yesterday, she says. I gave him garlic and boiled ox tongue. That's what the barber said. You nod like that's normal. Garlic and ox tongue. The barber has a recipe for everything except honesty. You examine the man. Buboes under both arms. Blackening toes. It won't be long. You reach for your satchel and hesitate. Do you treat him or just comfort her? You offer both a compress soaked in vinegar, a few murmured words, and something resembling a blessing. She bows her head. You do not ask for payment. You wouldn't accept it anyway. Outside, a group of men argue in front of the guild hall. Something about taxes, about closed trade routes, about whose boat brought in the rats. You pass unnoticed, just another ghost in a mask. You make your way to the city outskirts. There's a manor here, wealthy but discreet. The gates are open. A steward greets you. He wears perfume strong enough to mask rot. That alone tells you what you need to know. You're brought to a large sunlit room. Curtains drawn, cushions piled high, incense burning in corners. A man lies on the bed, wheezing through clenched teeth. This is Lord Dialbizi, the steward says. He demands silence. You nod. Dialbizi is half lord, half merchant, all arrogance. Even now his eyes burn with suspicion. Is this necessary? He rasps, pointing to your mask. Yes, you reply simply. He scoffs. I remember when doctors wore robes, not carnival costumes. Your robe is soaked through with fever sweat, you say. Perhaps we both look ridiculous. His lips curl. Do what you came for. You examine him. Throat like hot stone, groin buboes, already cracked. You ask about others in the house. He waves dismissively. Servants, replaceable. Of course. You do what you can, cool cloths, herbal poultices, prayers whispered not for the dead, but for the dying. You leave a tonic laced with valerian and elderberry. He won't take it, but it's polite to offer. As you leave, the steward stops you. There's another, he says. The maid. In the cellar. Of course there is. You descend. The air thickens with mildew. The walls sweat. You find her curled against a barrel, eyes, wide open lips, dry. She sees you and recoils. No, she whispers. Not you. I'm here to help you say. Your death, she replies. You kneel. Reach for her hand. She flinches. You don't force it. Instead, you leave water and a packet of dried lavender. You place them beside her. Then, in the flickering torchlight, you do something foolish. You remove your glove. Just one hand. Just for a moment. You hold it out. She stares. And then, trembling, she takes it. Not tightly, but enough. The gesture means nothing. The gesture means everything. You pull your glove back on and leave. Back in the city, a parade of flagellants marches by. Shirtless, chanting, whipping their own backs in penance. Blood flicks across cobblestones. People watch from windows, whispering prayers. Historians still debate whether these movements helped slow the plague or simply turned desperation into spectacle. Either way, they're impossible to ignore. One of them collapses at your feet, young, pale. You crouch beside him. Go away, he mumbles. I sinned too late. You offer water. He spits it out. God is watching. If he is, you murmur, he's remarkably quiet. You walk on boots, echoing against empty stones. At your room, you find a note under the door. Scrawled in coal dust, don't trust the barber. Don't eat the bread. No signature. You lie awake for hours, not because of the note, because your throat still burns. You wake with blood in your mouth. Not much, just a coppery smear on your tongue, like licking the edge of a coin. but it's enough. Enough to make you sit up too fast, sending a sharp pulse through your temple like a chisel in rotten wood. You don't have time to panic. You rinse your mouth with vinegar, pretend it didn't happen, and fumble with your gloves. Your mask is sticky with yesterday's sweat. You don't care. You're late. Today's summons takes you to the hill above Florence. Rich homes, broad views, taller fences. The plague, of course, doesn't care about altitude or money. But the rich like to pretend it does. A steward greets you at the iron gate nose, pinched as though the stench might leak through his sinuses and steal his dignity. "This way, doctor," he says, avoiding eye contact. Inside the villa is absurdly quiet. Too quiet. That means one of two things. Either everyone is dead, or they're about to be. A woman meets you in the drawing room. Nobility. You can tell by the rings, the posture, the way her voice tries not to crack. "My husband," she whispers. "He's speaking in tongues." You follow her through a gallery of saints and ancestors, all staring down with judgmental eyes. The husband is sprawled across a velvet couch, face-flushed limbs twitching. He mutters something in a language you don't recognize. You approach, check his pulse. High, fevered. You tilt his head, spot the telltale swelling at the jawline. Not bubonic. Something else you ask when it started. 2 days ago, the wife says, he wouldn't eat. And the fever came. Then, she gestures vaguely at the ceiling. "This." You nod solemnly, as if this clarifies everything. It doesn't, but you have to look like it does. You draw a tincture from your satchel, honey vinegar, a pinch of poppy, and offer it. He bites your glove. Hard. You pull back. He growls. Historians still argue whether the plague caused neurological symptoms or whether fever simply cracked the mind like old timber. Either way, you've seen this before. It never ends well. You mix the tincture into wine. His wife coaxes it down his throat. He spasms, once then slumps. You clean your glove and mutter your apologies. "Prepare yourself," you say. She nods, but you know she won't. No one ever does. On your way out, a servant stops you. Young, freckled. "Doctor," she says, "can I ask you something?" You nod. Do the masks actually work? You hesitate. Then you say what you always say. Sometimes. You return to the streets, back toward the butcher's lane, where you're told a man has locked himself in a shed with 6 pigs and a prayer. Sure enough, you find the shed. The door is barred from within. You knock. "Who's there?" comes a panicked voice. "Doctor," you reply. Silence. Then, "I'm not sick." You ask why he's in the shed. To avoid the sick, fair enough. You ask how long he's been in there. 4 days, living on pork and pickle juice. You suggest he might still fall ill in there. That's the point, he says. "If I'm gonna die, I'd rather do it with bacon." You can't argue with that logic. You leave him with some dried lavender and a warning to avoid rats. He laughs. "I killed one yesterday. Named it after my mother-in-law." You're still chuckling when you reach the apothecary's stall, or what used to be one. It's abandoned now, the shelves, empty jars, overturned. You step inside cautiously. The air smells of crushed rosemary and moldy licorice. You scan the room. Then you see it. A note pinned to the wall with a fishbone. "To whoever finds this, I have fled east. This city is lost. Do not use the red powder." It was a mistake. Next to it, a small tin labeled red powder. Obviously. You pick it up. Sniff. It burns your nose hairs. A volatile mix, mercury cinnabar, possibly arsenic. You pocket it, against your better judgment. You make your way to the square where a crowd is gathered. Unusual. At the center, a woman on a stool tied at the wrists. A priest circles her chanting. You step closer. She's sobbing. Her mouth is stuffed with linen. You ask someone in the crowd what's happening. She's a witch, the man says. They say she boiled cats and cursed a well. You sigh. Superstition is a faster killer than any disease. You approach the priest. What evidence, you ask? He scowls. She has no buboes. She walks among the sick and lives. So she's healthy, you reply flatly. He doesn't like that. You defend her, he sneers. I'm defending common sense. The crowd murmurs. You untie her wrists, pull the linen from her mouth. Go, you tell her. She runs. The priest fumes. You'll regret this. You already do. By evening, the sky turns greenish-gray, a storm rolling in from the west. Rain again. You trudge back toward your room, but a beggar grabs your arm. Doctor, he croaks. They're dumping bodies near the mill. Not burying, just tossing. You nod. You've seen it before. You should look, he insists. So you do. You follow the river to the mill. There in the tall grass, half covered by leaves and mercy, are the dead. 20, maybe 30. Limbs tangled, eyes open. One of them wears a mask. Not like yours. Cruder, papery, with ink still drying. You step closer. Inside the mask, a face you recognize. It's the young courier, the one who fetched you for the mayor. His throat is slit. This wasn't plague. You turn, slowly heart-thudding. You're not alone. In the trees, someone's watching. You reach for your scalpel and find only a smear of blood in your empty satchel. You don't run. You've seen too many bodies, too many deaths to start panicking now. But your breath shortens, your vision narrows, and your hand reaches for the weapon that isn't there. Your scalpel is gone, just the faint smear left behind, like a calling card. Not of a thief, of a message. The figure in the trees doesn't move, just a silhouette between branches, watching, not hiding. You stare back for a long moment, then do the most dangerous thing you can. In a moment like this, you pretend you're not afraid. You bow slightly, then you walk away. The figure does not follow, but the feeling does. You return to your room and bolt the door. Not that it will stop anyone determined, but it makes your hands feel busy, and today, busy hands mean survival. You empty your satchel, lay out every item. Gloves cracked at the knuckles, tincture bottle nearly empty, red powder still sealed, whispering its warning. Ledger stained with ash, some pages stuck together from damp. A single silver coin, blank card now with a second word. Almost. Your fever returns that night. You dream of rats the size of children masks, filled with bees, and a crowd clapping politely as you fall into a pit. It's not metaphorical. It's just medieval. You wake tangled in blankets, soaked in sweat, your mouth dry as straw. You grope for water and splash it over your face. You're shaking again. You reach for the dried lavender, inhale it slowly. The scent is sharp grounding. You clutch it like a relic. Outside bells toll. But this time, not just for the dead. It's a warning. You dress quickly, slipping the red powder into your satchel just in case. You head toward the square where a crowd gathers under gray skies. At the center, a priest, bloodied, being dragged by guards. His robe is torn, his crucifix snapped in half. Someone in the crowd shouts, "He hid the sick in the crypts." The bishop steps forward. Yes, the bishop whose sermons you've only heard through smoke and hearsay. He's shorter than you imagined, fatter too. He addresses the crowd with a voice full of conviction and very little concern. This man, he says, defied quarantine. He defied God. He will answer for both. You watch silently. The bishop's eyes sweep the square and briefly meet yours. Something cold flickers there. He knows who you are. He knows what you did freeing the woman accused of witchcraft. He turns back to the crowd. The plague is punishment. Disobedience prolongs it. There's that word again, punishment. As if Florence didn't already feel enough like hell. You leap before the sentencing. You already know how it ends. A rope, a pit, a prayer, too late. You pass through the market where stalls once vibrant with color now sit gray like teeth rotting in a jaw. A single vendor remains an old woman selling onions in small cloth pouches labeled plague bags. You buy one. It's filled with rosemary cloves, a little hope. It won't work, of course. But you need something to believe in today. You hear a scuffle behind the baker's shop. Two men fight over a loaf that's mostly mold. You move to intervene, then stop. It's the barber. The same barber surgeon who once lectured you on the cleansing power of leeches. He's thinner now, wild-eyed. The other man pins him against the wall. You sold me chalk for medicine. The barber spits blood. It's all the same now. You pull them apart. The buyer stumbles away cursing. The barber slumps. Ah, the doctor. He sneers, though. There's little venom in it. Still pretending you can fix this. You're still pretending you understand anatomy, you reply. He laughs. Fair enough. You examine his wounds. Nothing serious. Bruised ribs, cracked pride. You heard about the crypts, he asks. You nod. He leans in close. There's more. They're moving the bodies, but not all to the pits. You frown. Where then? He shrugs. Ask the bishop. You already don't want the answer. He pats your shoulder. Careful, doctor. You're not as invisible as you think. He limps away, and you return to your rounds. Your next visit takes you to the Weaver's Guild. High ceilings, long tables, silence. The looms are still. A single woman sits at the end of the hall, weaving nothing, just moving her fingers through empty air. Doctor, she whispers as you approach. They said to stay, so I stayed. You glance around. No one else. When was the last time you ate, you ask? I don't know. You offer her bread. She nibbles it slowly, like she's forgotten how to chew. Then she shows you her hands. Blisters. Red and raised, but not plague boils. Something chemical exposure. You sniff the air. Dyes. Historians still argue whether prolonged exposure to certain fabric dyes caused chronic illness among medieval workers. You're starting to believe it. You treat her as best you can. She thanks you with a single thread of crimson silk, which you tie around your wrist. A charm, maybe. Or a reminder. By late afternoon, you're summoned again. A merchant's home this time. Large. Gated. Inside, the family sits in silence. Father, mother, 2 children. All upright. All wide-eyed. You realize they're not sick. They're waiting to become sick. We heard the neighbor coughed yesterday, the father says. So we haven't moved since. You check them, all fine. You leave them garlic and advice. Open the windows, you say. They don't move. You exit feeling more like a ghost than ever. On your way back, you stop by the monastery, the one with the wall of names. You add 3 more in ink. You add your own in pencil, just in case. The wind picks up. Cold. The kind that smells of coming rain and long goodbyes. You pass a dog gnawing on something you don't want to identify. It growls but doesn't chase. Your fever pulses again. You cough into your mask. When you pull it away, there's blood. You stare at the blood on the inside of your mask. It's not a lot, just a smear the color of old rust. But it's yours, and it wasn't there yesterday. That matters more than you're ready to admit. You wipe it clean with a vinegar-soaked cloth, as though that can erase what it means. As though you haven't seen the same sign on dozens of faces before yours most now buried or burning. You tell yourself it's just the smoke, the dust, the cold air from the hills. It's not. But you're not ready to say it out loud. Instead, you press on. You head to the baker's district again, where an older woman has reportedly locked herself in a flour barrel. The locals won't go near her. She's cursed, they whisper. She's immune. Which is apparently just as suspicious as being sick. You find the barrel tipped on its side in an alley with flour spilling like snowfall across the stones. A broom sticks out the top like a flag of surrender. Hello, you call? Silence. Then a voice muffled, "Go away." You crouch beside the barrel. "I'm the doctor." I said, "Go away." You lean close. "Why are you in there?" "Because everyone I loved is dead. And flour is soft. Can't argue with that." You offer her some water and a lemon wedge. She peers out, one eye bloodshot, the other milky. "Do you think it's God?" You pause. "Then I think God took a holiday." She snorts. Figures. You leave her with a sachet of herbs. She'll be fine for now. Or not. But she made it another day, and that's all you can ask from anyone. As you walk away, you spot chalk drawings on a wall. Children's hands, little houses, a stick figure with a big crooked nose, your beak unmistakable. Next to it, in a child's wobbly hand, he helps. You stare at it longer than you should. It's not accurate, but it's kind. You head toward the river. Word spreads fast here, even faster than the disease. There's talk of a new miracle remedy making rounds, brought by a man in crimson robes with a feathered hat and a velvet pouch. That's never a good sign. You find him outside a tavern speaking to a gathering of the desperate. He's tall, bearded, and charismatic in the way a fox is charismatic to a henhouse. One drop under the tongue, he says, holding a vial, guaranteed to cleanse the humors. You step forward. "Doctor," you say, just loud enough. He turns, smiles like a man who sold snake oil to royalty. "Ah, a fellow physician. How delightful." You hold out your hand. "May I?" He hesitates, then offers a vial. You unstop it and sniff. Mint, vinegar, laudanum, and something else, camphor maybe. You hand it back. "Might ease pain, won't stop the plague." He chuckles. "Perhaps, but people want comfort more than cure." And there it is. You step aside as the crowd rushes to buy. He pockets their coins bows with flair and vanishes before the first dose is swallowed. You do not follow. You already know where that path ends. Back at the city gates, a cart rattles in from the countryside. 2 oxen, both gaunt. The driver's wrapped head to toe in linens like a mummy. He doesn't speak, just points to the back. You lift the cloth. Inside 6 bodies. Not stacked, arranged, carefully, reverently, each one clutching a flower. You nod to the driver. He nods back, then turns his cart and leaves, never saying a word. You make your way to the field behind the monastery, the one now used for shallow graves. 2 boys dig with broken shovels. A friar nearby recites prayers so hoarse they barely sound human. You help them lower the bodies in. You don't ask names. There's no one left to answer. As you wipe your gloves clean, you hear laughter again. Not the giggles of children this time. This is hollow, jagged. The laugh of someone who's just remembered a joke that cost them everything. You follow the sound and find a man seated on a bench, legs crossed, a raven perched on his shoulder. His clothes are expensive, torn, covered in dried blood. He's holding a mirror, watching himself laugh. You ask, "Are you hurt?" He stops laughing and stares at you. "No," he says slowly. "I'm already dead." You reach forward to check his pulse, but he swats your hand away. "No," he repeats. "Not yet, but soon." He offers the mirror to you. You take it. Your reflection is ghastly, eyes sunken, skin pale. There's a tremble at your lip you hadn't noticed. The mask hides much, but not enough. You hand the mirror back. He smiles. You should rest, he says. Before you forget who you are, you leave without another word. Back in your room, the rat is back, staring from the corner. You don't chase it away. Your fever burns higher tonight. Your thoughts run wild. You wonder about the man with the cart, the silent driver. Was he collecting the bodies or returning them? You wonder about the blank card. It now reads, "You knew this would happen." You stare at it, and you don't disagree. You lie back. The mask on the table watches you. You cough again. This time there's more blood. Your hands shake as you lace your boots. The tremors no longer subtle fingers stuttering over knots, palms sweaty beneath thin gloves. You glance at your mask resting on the table like an old friend turned stranger. The beak seems longer today. Or maybe it's just that you're smaller. You slide it on anyway. Outside, Florence hasn't changed, which is to say it's worse. The streets are quieter than yesterday. Fewer carts, fewer voices. The silence is the kind that hums in your ears like the whole city's holding its breath. You're called to the weaving district again, someone found alive inside a boarded house, which is unusual. Most people found that way are far too quiet. The boards are easy to pry loose. Inside, a man is curled in a chair, legs bound with a belt, eyes wild and glassy. He screams when he sees you, not out of fear but relief. "You're real," he shouts. "You're real this time." That's not the warmest greeting. You speak softly. "What happened?" He points to the door. "They sealed me in. My own brother. Said I looked pale. I was fine, still am. Look," he stands, wobbles, coughs, then vomits into a chamber pot. "So, not entirely fine." You help him to sit. You check for fever. It's low, not alarming yet. But the veins under his skin are darker than they should be. He grabs your wrist. "Promise me something." You pause. "If I change, if I go mad, don't let them throw me in the pit." You nod. "I promise." You won't keep it. You've promised that 5 times this week. You haven't kept it once. You leave him with willow bark tea and half a biscuit. He thanks you like you've handed him salvation. Outside, a group of children has gathered. One tosses a stone at your feet. "Murderer," he yells. You look at him. Why? Because everyone you visit dies. The others nod. They're afraid. And kids aren't good at being subtle about it. You kneel. "Everyone I visit is already dying." I try to help. Your death, the smallest one, says. But with a hat, you stand. There's nothing else to say. You move toward the river. At a bridge, you see something new. A red mark on a door. Not the usual cross or sigil. This is a spiral. Painted recently, still wet. You knock. No answer. You try the door. It creaks open. Inside empty. Furniture overturned. Windows smashed. Blood on the floor in thin lines like something was dragged. But there are no bodies. Just a single shoe. You back out slowly. You check the ledger in your satchel, flip through the pages, until you find the family who lived here. Father, mother, 2 sons. You saw them 5 days ago. Gave them elderberry syrup. The mother smiled. The boys shook your hand. You remember that. Now they're gone. You add a note beside their names, missing. Spiral. Historians later argue about these spiral symbols. Were they code? Was it the mark of an underground society? Were they warnings from those who thought the plague wasn't natural? You won't live long enough to read their debates. Next stop, the Mason's Lodge. The foreman greets you at the door. His face is gray, but his eyes are stubborn. "We're still working," he says. "City needs more graves than walls." You nod. Anyone sick? He hesitates, then points to the far end of the hall. You find a man slumped over a stone-block chisel still in hand. His skin is flushed, breathing fast. No visible buboes, but his pupils are huge. Been talking nonsense, the foreman says. Said someone's following him. You examine the man. His arms twitch every few seconds like a puppet fighting its strings. You lift his sleeve. Tiny cuts. Not self-inflicted. Surgical. Precise. Someone's bled him. Recently, the barber, or someone more careful, you look around. No one meets your eyes. You dose him with poppy syrup and wrap his arm. You leave the lodge with too many questions and not enough time. It's nearly dusk when the messenger finds you. Urgent, he says, gasping. Black cross on the wrong door. That gets your attention. You follow him to the slums near the tannery. A small cottage barely more than a hut. A black cross painted on the door in thick pitch. But inside, the family is alive. Startled, confused, healthy. Who marked us, the mother asks. We've not coughed once, you inspect them. No signs, not even fatigue. Someone made a mistake, you say, though you don't believe it. You wipe the cross away, fast, angry. This isn't sloppiness, it's sabotage. You mark the name in your book, add another word framed. You leave, but you feel eyes on you again. That weight. Like someone balancing their gaze on your back, you quicken your pace. Back in your room, your ledger now contains more questions than names. You flip to the inside cover. The blank card is still there. Now it reads, you should have run. You close the book. Remove your gloves. Check your wrists. Spots. Small. Reddish. Like the early rash. You close your eyes and breathe. Not deeply. Just enough to keep going. For one more day. You wake up to shouting. It's not angry shouting, worse. It's panicked. Frenzied. The kind that comes from people who've just realized they're surrounded by something they can't fight. You sit up head pounding and pull the mask to your face as instinctively as breathing. You step out into chaos. Down the street, a body burns in the middle of the square. Not on a pyre. Just on fire. People circle at a distance, muttering prayers, others sobbing. One man yells, he got back up. Another screams, it's in the smoke. You push through the crowd and reach the corpse. It's blackened beyond recognition, limbs curled like an insect. No signs of plague boils, no sign of anything really. You ask the guard on watch what happened. We dragged him from the baker's, he says. Said he was already dead. Then he moved, twitched like a snake under salt. So, he gestures to the fire. No one's looking for nuance anymore. You tell them it was probably post-mortem reflex. You use the phrase neurological misfire. You might as well be speaking Greek, which technically some of your sources were. Historians still argue if plague victims sometimes revived or if these were just mistakes people presumed dead too soon. One theory even suggests catalepsy or shock made them appear lifeless. But the fear, that was always real. You're about to leave when you hear the barber shouting. Again, you turn the corner and see him standing on a broken crate, arms waving, face red. They're poisoning the wells, he cries. The bishop knows the rats are planted, the plague isn't real. Someone throws a cabbage at him. It misses. You step forward. Enough, you say. He turns, smiling. Ah, the beaked saint returns. You gesture for him to get down. Let's talk. He jumps, barefoot, limping. You walk together away from the crowd. Have you lost your mind? You ask. He snorts. My mind. You're the one walking around with a bird's nose thinking you're the cure. You keep your voice calm. You scared them. They should be scared. He grabs your arm. I've seen the bishop's men moving carts at night. No bodies, just crates. Heavy. Locked. We're near the south wall, beyond the tanner's yard. You pause. South wall. That's where they were sealing off entire streets last week. You assumed it was quarantine? You're starting to wonder. The barber leans closer. They're hiding something. I'd bet my last tooth on it. You look at his mouth. You're already missing 3. Exactly, he grins. You leave him muttering to himself and head toward the tanner's yard. You're not subtle, stumbling slightly, fever whispering in your ear. Still no one stops you. The south wall looms like the edge of the world. You skirt its base until you spot the path narrow, muddy, hidden behind stacked hides. There are tracks, cartwheels, fresh. You follow. They lead to a barn, one you thought abandoned. It isn't. Voices inside. Low, urgent. You crouch by the wall, find a knothole, and look. Inside are crates. Dozens. Not labeled. No smell. No rot. Whatever's inside isn't corpses. A man pries one open. Books. Not just any books. Bound in black. With red wax seals. Old. Another crate, vials. Labeled in Latin. Some shattered. You lean in closer. Too far. The wall groans. A voice inside yells, "Who's there?" You run. Boots splash behind you. You don't look back. You turn a corner and dive into a pile of discarded cloth. Hold your breath. Listen. Footsteps pass. You stay hidden until night falls. When you finally stand, your legs shake. You make your way home through streets now completely deserted. Not even the rats are out tonight. In your room, you sit on the floor. Unlace your boots slowly. Your foot bleeds. Blister popped, possibly infected. Not good. You light a candle and pull the red powder from your satchel. You stare at it. Just a pinch. For the pain, you hesitate. Then return it to your bag. You've seen too many people make that kind of mistake. You flip open your ledger, add a note south wall, crates, books, and vials, not plague. You add a second note, trust no one in red. You pull the card from the back cover. Tonight it says, you're close now. You should feel triumphant. But you just feel cold, and the cough is worse. Now there's a taste behind your teeth. Metallic. Final. It's nearly dawn when the knock comes. Not frantic this time. Soft, deliberate. You debate whether to answer. You don't feel like a doctor anymore. You feel like a man wearing someone else's courage, and the stitching is coming apart. But old habits move you to the door. Outside stands a girl, 12, maybe 13. Cloak too large, one shoe missing. Her face is soot-streaked, but her voice is steady. My mother said, if we get worse, find the man with the crow's nose. You manage a nod. Where is she? The girl leads you through twisted alleys where houses lean into each other like drunks. The streets are slick with last night's rain, and the sky's turning that sickly yellow color that always comes before a storm. You reach a building that barely deserves the title. 2 walls, half a roof, and a curtain for a door. Inside, her mother lies on a pile of rags. Her skin is grayish-green eyes, sunken hands twitching like spider legs in a dream. The girl crouches beside her. She stopped speaking yesterday, but she's still breathing. You check her pulse, shallow, thready. She has all the signs, but something's different. Her skin isn't hot, just wrong. She doesn't reek of infection. She smells like metal and rosemary. You ask if she drank anything strange. She took medicine, the girl says. A man gave it to her. Said it would close the door before the plague walks in. You freeze. What did he look like, redcoat? Feathered hat. Of course. You press your fingers to the woman's neck again. Her eyes open. Just for a second. She mouths something. You lean closer. She whispers, they're building down. And she stops. You stay a while. Make her as comfortable as you can. The girl asks if she'll wake up. No, you say gently, but she made it longer than most. You give the girl your scarf and some dried meat from your satchel. It's all you have. Go to the monastery, you say. Tell the friar you met the doctor. She nods but doesn't move. You don't blame her. As you leave, you spot something scratched into the doorframe. Faint, almost hidden by rot. A spiral. This is the third one. You make a mark in your ledger. Then you tear that page out and burn it. Some things are safer forgotten. By midday, the sky darkens. Thunder rolls low, distant. You haven't eaten, but you're too tired to care. Your fever makes the cobblestones tilt beneath your feet. You visit the cemetery, not to treat, not to dig, just to sit. There's a small bench beside the row of unmarked graves. You rest there watching the clouds roll. A monk walks by. He recognizes you. You've done more than most, he says. Not enough, you reply. He sits beside you. I used to believe the plague was punishment, he says. For our sins, for vanity, for war. And now he looks at the sky. Now I think it's just nature. Cold, uninterested, bigger than we are. You nod, but somehow worse. He chuckles. I know. He reaches into his sleeve and hands you a paper. Folded, sealed with wax. Someone left this for you. You break the seal. Inside a single line, beneath the red chapel. You look up. The monk is gone. You stand slowly. The red chapel is near the southern wall where you saw the carts. The crates, the men in silence. You go. You're not well enough to be doing this. You know that. But something in your bones, some old dying spark, refuses to let go. You reach the chapel by twilight. It's abandoned. Door ajar. Candles long since melted into puddles of dust. Inside it's cold. Wrong cold. Not the kind that brushes your skin. The kind that makes your teeth ache. You walk to the altar. There behind a torn tapestry is a door. Wood. Reinforced with iron bands. Unlocked. You descend. Stone steps. Damp air. The kind of silence that presses on your lungs. You hear something. Not voices. Not footsteps. Breathing. Not yours. The passage opens into a room lit by oil lamps. Crates line the walls like the ones you saw before. More books. Strange tools. Vials. And in the center a table. On it a body. Masked. Robed. You walk closer. It's you. Same mask. Same gloves. Same robe. But unmoving. You rip the mask off. The face underneath is pale. Very pale. It's the courier boy. The one they buried. But he's dressed like you. As if someone is recreating you. You hear a sound behind you. A voice. Familiar. You've done well, it says. But it's almost time. You turn. The man in red. Feathered hat. Gloves too clean. Smile too wide. What is this, you ask? He steps forward. Legacy, he says. We're not curing the plague, Doctor. We're studying it. Preserving it. You can't speak. You're shaking again. He nods at the table. Every city needs a plague doctor, even when the plague is gone. You look down at the boy, at his stitched wrists, at the scar on his chin, the one you have. Why him? Because you'll die soon, he says gently. But your image doesn't have to. He reaches into his coat, holds out another mask. Identical to yours. You don't take it. You run. You don't remember how you get back to your room. You lock the door. Light every candle. Burn the blank card. The ashes spell a single word before they blow away, replaced. You cough, hard. The bowl fills with red. You're out of time. The fever is no longer a background hum. It's an anthem now blaring behind your eyes with every heartbeat. The world sways. Even sitting still feels like falling. You don't remember lighting the candles around the room, but They flicker at odd angles, their shadows climbing the walls like something alive. You stare at your hands, steady ones, now trembling wrecks of yellowed nails and paper-thin skin. You've seen hands like this before, on patients who didn't last the week, on bodies in the pits, on yourself in dreams. You check your ledger, the ink blurred. Pages stick where blood has dried in thin, rust-colored lines. You flip to the front. The name you wrote there weeks ago, yours, has begun to fade. Or maybe that's just your vision. You hear something outside. Shouting and bells. Not funeral bells this time. Alarm bells. You force yourself up, wrap the robe tighter around your shaking frame, and step out. The street is packed. More people than you've seen in days. Some crying, others shouting. A woman clutches a loaf of bread like it's a newborn. A man bleeds from the forehead, swinging a broken broom. And at the center of it all, a wagon. Crashed. Spilled across the cobblestones, our crates splintered, smashed, their contents strewn like the innards of some monstrous beast. And among the debris, books. Dozens, identical black covers, each with the same wax seal. You step forward, heart racing. People back away. Not because they recognize you, but because of the mask. Always the mask. One book lies open. You kneel. Read. It's a journal. Detailed, precise. It describes symptoms, trials, observations. Then names. Familiar ones. The cobbler's son, the girl in the flour barrel, even the weaver's assistant. It's your patience. Someone has been watching, recording. Before you can think, you hear it at hooves. Guards, and behind them red. The man with the feathered hat dismounts. This was not part of the plan, he says to the captain. Secure the area. You back away. Too late. They see you. Doctor, he calls too smoothly. A word, you run. Of course you run. It's not graceful. You're coughing again. Something hot trickles from your nose. But your legs still know the streets better than theirs. You duck through alleys past boarded homes and shrines made of scrap. You tear off your mask and shove it into a rain barrel. It floats, face up, smiling. You reach the butcher's shop, locked, the window open. Barely. You crawl through. Inside meat hooks, dust, old blood. You hide in the back room, breathing through a towel, praying it muffles the rattle in your chest. Footsteps pass. Voices. Then silence. You stay there for what feels like hours. Maybe it is. When you emerge, it's nearly dark. No one on the street. Just you and Florence. You return to your room. You don't know why. There's nothing left there. But where else would you go? The candle you left earlier has burned to its base. Your chair is still warm. You don't remember sitting in it. You notice the mirror across the room. Cracked. A gift from a noblewoman who didn't survive long enough to reclaim it. You walk to it, look, and flinch, not because of your face, because of what's beside it. The red-coated man. In the reflection only. You spin, no one. You turn back. He's still there. Smiling. He lifts a finger, points at you, then draws a spiral in the air. The glass fogs. The spiral lingers. You drop the mirror. It shatters. You drop too. Your knees can't hold you anymore. You crawl to your ledger, open it, and write, I am not the first. I won't be the last. You underline it. Then just below, this isn't about the plague anymore. You lie back. Your fingers twitch. You breathe slowly, deliberately, like it's the only thing that separates you from whatever waits in the reflection. Your name in the ledger is still there. You add a second one. The courier boys. Then a third. Blank. You don't fill it in. Yet. You wake on the floor. The stone is cool against your face. For the first time in days, that's a relief. Your fever has broken just a little, but It's enough to make the world feel marginally real again. You sit up slowly. Your back aches like someone spent the night chiseling Latin prayers into your spine. The mirror lies in shards beside you. Each fragment holds a different angle of your reflection. None of them look alive. You take one piece palm-sized and slip it into your satchel. A keepsake? Or a warning? There's a knock on the door. You don't move. A second knock. Firmer, not angry, just patient. You open it. The girl from the flower barrel stands there, cleaned up. Eyes still sad but steadier now. I brought you something, she says. She holds out a bundle wrapped in linen. You take it carefully, expecting bread or herbs. It's your charm pouch, the one that vanished days ago. How did you? She shrugs. It was in the street, near the south wall. You nod. Thank her. Ask if she's well. Alive, she says. That's something. She leaves without asking for anything in return. You open the pouch. Inside dried mint rosemary, a sliver of bone, a small coin you'd forgotten. And something new. A page torn from your ledger. Not by you. On it a drawing. A spiral. And underneath your name, written in a hand that isn't yours. That evening, the mayor sends for you again. You're surprised he's still alive. You arrive at the estate. It's quieter now. Fewer guards, more candles. The place smells like myrrh and desperation. The mayor is seated in his study, breathing heavily. His face is gaunt, eyes rimmed with black. You've heard the rumors, he says, about the spirals, the man in red, the crates. You nod. He pours wine, doesn't drink it. I can't stop them. I don't even know who they are anymore. You ask what he means. They're not clergy, not guards, not even foreign agents, just men with keys, authority that predates me. He slides a parchment across the table. You unfold it, an edict, signed weeks ago, with your name listed among those approved for observation. You stare at it. Why, you whisper. He leans in, because you're the last one still asking questions. He reaches under the table and produces a leather case. Opens it, inside a different mask. Similar shape, no beak, just a porcelain face. Smooth, blank. They said you'd need this soon, he says, to blend in. You don't touch it. Who are they? He doesn't answer. He dies in the night. You watch them take his body. No ritual, no prayer, just bundled and gone. You follow unnoticed to the cathedral. The doors are open. Inside silence. And that awful cold again. You walk slowly, following the candlelight, down the nave, to the altar, to the crypt stairs. They're open now. You descend and find what you feared. Another lab. But this one, functional. Vials sorted on shelves, charts pinned to stone, masks lined up like saints, and cages with rats twitching, watching. At the center, a table. A child lies on it, not moving. You step closer, not breathing. You pull the sheet down. It's the courier boy. Again, but not. His features are altered, sharper. Mouth sewn shut, fingers stained with ink. He's being copied. You stumble back. Footsteps echo. You turn. Red coat, feathered hat. You're not supposed to be here, he says calmly. You don't run this time. You're experimenting. We're preserving, he corrects. This plague, it's perfect. Predictable. Repeating. We learn something new every cycle. You shake your head. Cycle. He steps toward you. Do you really think? This is the first time, he says. The Black Death, the Red Death, the Quiet Season. Different names. Same breath. He holds up a ledger. Yours. Not a copy. Yours. I know how this ends, he says. You die. The city forgets. We begin again. He reaches into his coat. Produces a new card. Blank. Sign your name, he says. We'll take care of the rest. You stare, then turn and run. You make it outside into the rain. No one stops you. You throw the card into the gutter. You run until your lungs feel like they're full of knives. You collapse in the square, gasping. A child walks past and presses a coin into your hand. It's warm. When you open your fingers, it's not a coin. It's the card again, now with your name etched in red. You wake in the square. Someone's thrown a blanket over you, a thin wool sheet frayed at the edges and damp with morning dew. You don't remember lying down. You don't remember falling asleep. You do remember the card in your hand. You open your palm. Gone. Just a faint red smear on your skin, like the afterimage of a dream you can't prove happened. You sit up slowly. The fever's back not as fire, but as fog. Everything's fuzzy around the edges. People pass by without stopping. You're still wearing the mask. You wonder if they even see you anymore, or if the plague doctor has simply become part of the city's background noise. You head toward the monastery. It's the only place that still feels grounded in something real. The monk from before is in the garden, turning soil with bare hands. You look worse, he says, without glancing up. I feel worse. He stands, brushes dirt from his robe. Come, we'll find you broth. You follow him inside, past rows of sick and recovering. The smell is familiar now. Balms, old sweat, something faintly herbal. The monk leads you to a bench and offers a bowl of stew. You accept, though your stomach feels like it belongs to someone else. You've been in the crypts, he says quietly. You nod. You saw the body. Another nod. The boy? Yes. He sighs. They've been doing it for years. Why, to remember, he says. Or so they claim. As if the world needs help remembering death. You tell him about the vials, the ledgers, the masks, the man in red, the edict with your name. He doesn't look surprised. They come during every plague, different names, same methods, a brotherhood, a guild, something older than the church. Are they scientists? He shrugs. Maybe once. But now they're just curators of misery. You lean back. I saw the courier. Twice. Once alive, then again. Dressed as me. The monk turns to face you fully. Then it's begun. You narrow your eyes. But as he pauses. Then softly, the replication. You wait. When the body breaks, they replace the image, he says. Not just the clothes. The manner. The voice. The memory of you. Someone else becomes you, and the cycle continues. A fresh plague. A fresh mask. You don't want to believe it. But it explains too much. So I'm what being replaced. He looks at your trembling hands. Not yet. But soon. Outside the bell tolls. Not the funeral bell. A different one. Urgent. Sharp. The monk stiffens. They found another door. You ask what that means. But he's already gone. You step outside into the square. The crowd has formed at the base of the old watchtower. Guards stand shoulder to shoulder trying to hold people back. You push forward. Someone recognizes your mask and lets you through. Inside the tower, a hole gapes in the floor. Newly unearthed, dust still hangs in the air. A tunnel, lit by oil lamps. You descend. The tunnel bends after 20 paces, then widens into a stone chamber. More crates, more tools, diagrams carved into the walls, spirals again and again, and a table. You're tired of tables. This one has 3 masks laid out. One looks like yours. One's unfamiliar, sleeker, polished silver. The third is porcelain. Blank. You step closer. A page lies beneath them, written in crimson ink. We do not die. We adapt. We repeat. The doctor is not a man. He is a memory we wear. You hear footsteps. Red. Always red. Did you enjoy your rest? The voice asks. You turn slowly. He's alone this time. Or so you hope. What are you, you ask? He tilts his head. A mirror. You look into me, and you see your replacement. He picks up the silver mask. This one was yours. Last time, your knees weakened. What happened to him? He shrugs. He asked too many questions. You take a step back. That sounds familiar. He grins. Then you know what comes next. You lunge for the table, grab the porcelain mask, smash it. He doesn't flinch. That was dramatic, he says. I'm not being replaced. He walks toward you calm, patient. Everyone is replaced. Even kings. Especially doctors. You pull your scalpel, a small blade, but honest. He stops. You'll die anyway, he says. Then let it be me, you reply. Silence. Then he nods and vanishes. Not walks away, not runs. One blink in the space he occupied is just air. You're alone in the chamber. You sit, breathe, let your heart slow. You place your mask on the table beside the silver one. Then you pick up your ledger. You write, I was here. I tried. That must count for something. You sign your name. Then close the book. And wait. You don't know how long you sit there. Could be minutes. Could be hours. Time has become a blurred rope, fraying strand by strand with every heartbeat. The chamber remains silent. Even your breath has begun to feel foreign, like it belongs to someone else wearing your lungs. Eventually, your legs ache too much to keep still. You rise, bones cracking like old parchment, and slip your mask back on, not out of necessity, but because your face feels vulnerable without it. Naked. And you're not sure who might be watching. You take the silver mask. It's heavier than yours. Cold. The interior is lined with velvet, which is somehow worse. It was made for comfort. It was made for use. You don't put it on. Instead, you carry it like a burden. As you climb out of the crypt, the sun has set. Florence has taken on that deep, violet hue that seems reserved for the dying neither day nor night, just the space between. The streets are emptier than usual. Not silent, just muffled. Like the city is holding its breath. You reach the monastery again. No guards at the door. No coughing echoing through the halls. You walk quietly through the corridors, your boots tapping like distant thunder. The monk is gone. So are the patients. Cots stripped, floors swept. A few candles still flicker, but everything else has the unnerving cleanliness of something cleared, not healed. On the altar, a single object, the blank card. You pick it up. This time it reads, "Come to the wall." You already know which one. The southern wall has haunted your steps for weeks now. The place of the spirals, the crates, the bodies. The not bodies. You walk there without speaking, without hiding. The mask announces your arrival before your feet do. No one stops you. When you arrive, the gate is open. A man waits, not red, not feathered. A child, the girl from the flour barrel. Only cleaner now. Taller somehow, eyes older than they should be. You made it, she says. I wasn't sure I would. She smiled. Few do. She turns and walks through the gate. You follow. Inside is a wide clearing you've never seen. At the center, a structure, circular, low stone walls, a roof supported by columns. You step inside. The room is lined with mirrors, dozens. Some cracked, some whole. Each one shows a version of you, not just your reflection, but you from before. You as a younger doctor. You from the first week of the plague. You smiling. You crying. You covered in ash. You holding a child. You dying. You turn slowly. The girl stands by the center table. The silver mask rests there now, waiting. Why me, you ask? Because you kept asking. You look around. Is this The end. She tilts her head. It's your end. And what happens after she shrugs? Someone else wakes up, puts on the mask, walks into a city full of rats and questions. You stare at the silver face. You expect me to become the next. She doesn't answer. Because she doesn't need to. You already know. You pick up the mask. You feel your heartbeat in your fingers. Then you do something you haven't done in weeks. You laugh. It's dry, weak, but it's yours. I'm dying, you say. There's no point in replacing me. She nods. That's why it has to be now. The memory must transfer before the body fails. You realize the truth. The mask isn't just a disguise. It's a vessel. You look into the mirror across from you. Your reflection is no longer just yours. The face behind the beak shimmers, becomes the courier boy, then the noblewoman, then the weaver's assistant, then the red-coated man. It shifts again and lands on the monk. You step back. You were all of them, you whisper. The girl places her hand on the mask. And now you. You close your eyes. You remember the spiral scratched in ash on a patient's door. You remember the woman in the crypt whispering, "They're building down." You remember the note, "We do not die." We adapt. We repeat. You take a deep breath, and you put the mask on. It fits perfectly. The girl vanishes. The mirrors go dark. You walk out of the circle and back into the street. The city is waking again. Slowly, a new bell tolls. You look up. No one recognizes you. But that's the point, isn't it? The doctor has returned, and he is always someone new. You move through Florence like a ghost newly born. The silver mask weighs heavy on your face, not in ounces, but in meaning. It doesn't creak or clatter like the old one. No, this mask fits too well, like it knows you. Or worse, like it remembers you. People look at you differently now. Before they flinched. Children pointed, some even spit. But now they step aside with reverence. They bow. You hate it. Because it's not you they see anymore. It's what you've become. A figure. A myth. A silver-masked doctor. A symbol wrapped around a sickness no one understands. You pass the market. The baker is back, but she's not selling bread. She's selling blessed vinegar cloths soaked in herbs and prayers. 1 copper coin apiece. She doesn't recognize you. She thanks you anyway. For keeping us from worse, she says. You don't answer. You head toward the western edge of the city near the olive orchards. A village there has been silent for 3 days. Too quiet. A bad sign. You find it hollowed out, not destroyed. Just emptied. Chairs turned over, doors unlocked, meals half-eaten. A child's doll lies in the dirt, face-down, arms stretched like it was crawling to safety. No bodies. You check house after house. Nothing. You enter the final home, the mayor's summer retreat. Grand windows, untouched silverware. And on the wall, in dried red ink, cycle 22 complete. Preparing Florence for 23. You step back. On the floor is a pile of robes. Black, beaked, dozens, discarded masks, some broken, some bloodstained. You kneel and lift one. It's yours, the original. The strap still frayed. The beak stained with rosemary oil and regret. You can barely breathe. You're standing in a nest of your own ghosts. Suddenly, you remember a phrase from an old text, the writings of Ibn al-Khatib, centuries ahead of his time. The plague is not a punishment. It is contact, proximity to the afflicted, and to memory. Memory, not just yours. You leave the house and follow the path into the woods. The road narrows, twists. Eventually, you find the pit. It's not for bodies. It's for masks. Hundreds of them. Some shattered, some still whole, all facing upward. You drop the old one in. It lands softly on velvet ash. The silver one remains on your face. You return to the city. You keep your head down. That evening, as the bells toll again, a letter is slipped under your door. No name, no seal. Just 4 words you've survived the handoff. You burn it. Later, you walk to the weaver's quarter. A young woman meets you at the door. She doesn't flinch when she sees the mask. My sister has a fever, she says. She's afraid you'll take her away. I won't, you say. She hesitates. Can I trust you? You pause. Not for effect. Because you don't know the answer. Finally, you say, not me. But you can trust the work. She leads you inside. You examine the girl, no plague signs. Just flu, malnutrition, fear. You leave herbs, a salve, a kiss on the forehead through leather gloves. Outside, the woman stops you. I thought you were someone else, she says. You look at her. So did I. You walk home slowly past burning barrels and walls painted with spirals. You stop by the monastery and carve one name into the door. Your name. Or at least the one you were born with. Then you leave. The next day, the city council declares an end to the second wave. People celebrate. Drink, dance. A mask floats down the Arno caught between driftwood and lilies. No one sees it, except you. That night you stand by your window and write a single line in the ledger, Florence survived me. You close the book and sleep without dreams. When you wake, it's quiet. Not the thick, oppressive silence of mass death, not anymore, but a newer, quiet lighter. Like the city itself is still unsure whether it can trust the calm. After months of bells, screams, fires, prayers, and hammering nails into coffin lids, silence feels suspicious, fragile. You rise slowly. No fever, no cough. You press 2 fingers to your neck, pulse faint. But yours, still here. You dress out of habit. Pull the silver mask from the hook by the window. For a long while, you just stare at it. It stares back. You set it down. Today, you walk barefaced. No one stops you. You stroll the streets of Florence, like a man returned from the dead. No mask, no robe, just a worn coat and a ledger tucked under one arm. People notice. Some nod. Some don't know you. Others look and frown, as if sensing something's different, but not knowing why. That's the strange thing about becoming a symbol. Once the symbol changes, people feel it in their bones, even if they can't explain it. You visit the square where the children used to sing about roses and falling. It's quiet now. A few of them are drawing in chalk. One girl's sketching a tall man in a mask with a crow's beak. Her lines are confident. You don't interrupt her. You cross the Arno, past the bread stalls and spice tables, past the empty homes marked with fading black crosses. You know each street by heart. You've seen them in firelight and candlelight and lightning. You reach the bishop's residence. The gates are open. Inside, the furniture is covered in linen. The air smells of rot and dried incense. You call out. No answer. A note lies on the desk. Scrawled hastily, it reads, "Left for Luca. May God forgive us." You pocket the note. You continue on to the tanner's yard. The place is deserted now. No guards, no spirals freshly drawn. You find the hidden trail behind the hide racks and follow it to the barn, once sealed tight, now hanging open like a broken jaw. Inside, dust, shattered vials, clawed footprints of rats. The crates are gone, the table burned. In the ashes, you find a charred sliver of metal. You hold it up to the light. Part of a mask, silver, melted. You smile just barely. They left in a hurry, or maybe they moved on. You walk back toward the city center as evening falls. Florence glows soft gold. It hasn't looked like this in months. A man approaches you near the cathedral steps. Young, hooded, shaky hands. "Doctor," he asks. You raise an eyebrow. He swallows. "I have someone who's sick. I didn't know who else to find." They said the one in the silver mask helped. You glance behind him. A girl no older than 10 is slumped against a wall, cheeks flushed, breath shallow. You kneel beside her, press your hand to her forehead. Too warm, not plague, just fever. You pull out a sprig of dried lavender soaked in vinegar and press it beneath her nose. Her breathing slows. You turn back to the man. "She'll need broth, sleep, and clean water." He nods. "Thank you." You nod back. Then you do something bold. You hand him the ledger. He blinks. "What's this? It's not done," you say. "But someone should keep it going." He flips it open. "These are names. People I treated. People I couldn't. All of them deserve remembering." He hesitates. "You're giving this up?" "No," you say. "I'm letting it continue." You walk away. You don't look back. That night you leave the mask, silver pristine, on the monastery steps beneath a sprig of rosemary. The next morning, it's gone. Not stolen. Accepted. You spend your days walking the city without robes or rituals. People heal, rebuild, forget. But some nights when the moon is high and the wind carries the scent of cloves and candle wax, you catch a glimpse of someone at the edge of the crowd, tall. Still. Silver-faced. You don't wave. You don't speak. You just nod. Because now it's their turn. And for the first time, maybe ever, you get to rest. Weeks pass. Florence breathes again, not deeply, not freely, but enough to feel alive. Street musicians return with soft lutes and cracked voices. Merchants sweep the dust off stalls they thought they'd never reopen. Bells ring for weddings again, not just for deaths. And yet the plague isn't truly gone. You see it in the way people flinch at a sneeze. The way a cough still silences a tavern. The way a child draws a sun and adds a mask beside it just in case. You've become something different too. You're no longer doctor, not officially. You keep no clinic, carry no satchel. You're a man with calloused hands and tired eyes, walking the alleys like a ghost who refused to vanish. The baker gives you an extra loaf each week. A boy once handed you a rat he'd caught for your experiments. You thanked him and let it go by the well. One morning, a letter arrives, folded tightly, wax seal red unmarked. No name, no greeting, just a single sentence. There's another door. You burn it, of course, but you don't forget it. That same evening, a stranger comes to your table at the tavern. Broad shoulders, quiet eyes. He doesn't speak, just lays down a vial. Red liquid, slight shimmer. You push it back. He nods and leaves. You never see him again. The next week, a cart arrives in town. 2 oxen. Driver hooded. When asked where he came from, he simply replies, "North." He sells herbs, dried cloves, waxed cloths. He hands out flyers in 6 languages with prevention techniques. You know them all because you wrote them. You watch him from the shadows of the square. You don't stop him. Let the myth continue. But you do write again. Not in the old ledger, you gave that away. You start fresh. A new book, smaller, bound in plain leather. First page blank until you fill it. This is not over. You visit the apothecary next. The old one collapsed months ago. It's being rebuilt now, stone by stone. The new owner is a girl, barely 17. She grins when you walk in. "I heard you used to be a doctor," she says. You smile. "Still am. Just quieter about it." She shows you her shelves. You nod at the right places. Offer a few forgotten remedies: rose hips for infection, coal soot for poultices, dried mouse, don't ask for toothaches. She writes them all down. One day she'll teach someone else. That's how it spreads. Not the plague, the memory. One foggy morning you visit the cemetery. You walk between rows of stones, some carved, some unnamed. You find the wall again, the one where you used to write names with charcoal and hope. A child stands beside it now, chalk in hand. She's writing something. You glance over. It's a list, not of the dead, but the ones who survived. She looks up. You were the doctor, right? You hesitate, then nod. She hands you the chalk. You add a name, then another, then your own. This time not hidden. You step back and realize the wall is nearly full, and still growing. You leave the chalk at the base and walk away. Across town at the monastery, a bell rings 3 times. That's new. You don't check it. You don't want to know yet. You spend your evening with a pot of tea and your new book. The second page reads, "Plague is not just a sickness. It's a mirror. It shows us who we are and who we might become if we're not careful." Outside, children laugh again. One of them is wearing a paper mask. Beak too long, eyes crooked. He's chasing the others through the alley. They're shrieking, but not in fear. You smile. That night you sleep soundly. No dreams. Just breathing. And the soft memory of bells not ringing. Rain falls, not the hard, punishing kind that pounds rooftops like fists. This is a gentler rain, persistent, soft cleansing. Florence glistens beneath it, like a city just bathed after a long, filthy fever. The air smells like wet stone lavender from windowsills and the faint metallic ghost of everything the city has endured. You walk through it without a hood. No mask. Just yourself. That still feels strange. You reach the old southern gate and stand where the carts once rolled, where spirals were painted, where boxes were burned and bodies were replaced. It's quiet here now. No guards, no red coats, no whispers. Grass is growing again. A fig tree leans against a crumbling wall. You sit beneath it and pull the new ledger from your coat. You haven't written in it in a week, not because there's nothing to say, because there's too much. You flip through the pages. No symbols, no maps, just words. Questions, memories, observations that mean something only to you. Maybe not even that. You write one line. "They don't need me anymore." Then you strike it out. Below it you write, "That's not the point." Behind you someone coughs. You turn quickly, pulse skipping. It's the weaver's assistant, the young woman you once treated with vinegar compresses and herbal tea. She waves shyly, then lifts a basket. "Laundry," she says. "Sun's gone, but the rain's clean." You nod and she walks on. Alive. That word means more now than it ever did. You return home to find something waiting. On your door, a spiral. Small, drawn in charcoal. Not left as a threat this time. A mark, a whisper. You step inside, dripping wet, and there it is, a box. Sealed, unlabeled. You don't open it right away. You light a candle. Make tea. Let the box sit in the silence for a while, like a stranger waiting to be acknowledged. When you do open it, it contains only 2 things: a fresh mask and a mirror. No note, no instructions, just a choice. You set the mask aside. It's different from the others. No beak, no silver. This one is blank wood, smooth and warm to the touch. Humble, almost kind. You pick up the mirror. Your face looks back at you. Not haunted. Just older, wiser. Tired, yes, but yours. For the first time in weeks, you let yourself speak aloud. What happens if I stop? The reflection naturally offers no answer. But the silence seems to say someone else will start. You place both objects into the drawer by your bed. Not because you're finished, because you're finally willing to pause. The next morning, you visit the children's infirmary. A dozen small beds, laughter echoing off plaster walls. A boy with bandages on both arms greets you like a hero. He's made his own mask out of cloth and buttons. You're famous, he tells you. You chuckle. That's unfortunate. He doesn't get the joke. You sit beside him and unwrap a new book. Hand it to him. What's this journal? He opens it. Blank. I don't know what to write. Then start with your name. He does. Then yours. He doesn't ask how to spell it. Outside the city lives. The rivers flow without blockage. Smoke from cook fires, not funerals, drifts upward. The pigeons have returned cooing loudly like tiny gods with dusty wings. And in the window of the old tailor's shop, a sign reads, "Plague masks repaired. Beak or no beak." That makes you laugh harder than it should. You don't visit the monastery that day. You don't write. You sit by the Arno and watch boats move slowly upstream. Florence no longer needs a plague doctor, but that doesn't mean the world won't. You close your eyes, breathing in river mist and the scent of damp stone. And for now, just now, you're allowed to be a man, not a memory. The days stretch like soft wax under a summer flame. Florence hums, not the desperate, breathless hum of plague months, but a cautious, almost timid buzz. Markets are full again, though everyone still stands a few steps too far apart. Priests bless more babies than corpses. And in the evenings you hear music returning, faint flutes, laughter, a violin that's just slightly out of tune. You wander the streets, not as a healer now, not as a mask, but as a watcher. An old man offers you dried peaches near the olive stall. For what you did, he says. You've never seen him before. You accept one anyway. On the steps of the cathedral, the courier boy's sister, barely 5, runs after a stray cat laughing. Her legs are stronger now. Her cough is gone, her eyes bright. She doesn't remember you. That's a gift. You walk past a group of students debating loudly outside the university. One of them insists the plague was caused by a planetary alignment. Another counters with bad air. A third says it came from sin. You smile but don't interrupt. Historians still argue, even centuries later, about the causes. The fleas, the rats, the ships, the stars. Maybe it wasn't just one thing. Maybe it never is. You visit the old crypt again, just once. The entrance has been bricked over. Moss now creeps between the stones, as if nature itself is trying to forget what happened beneath. A local child passes you a drawing. It's you, but not quite. The figure wears a mask that's half beak, half blank, with one eye open and one shut. The caption says, "The doctor who made us better." You fold it gently and place it in your book. The new one. The clean one. You write beneath it, "They won't remember me, but maybe they'll remember what I tried to be." That night, a traveling merchant arrives in town. He brings silk, spices, and strange stories. He sets up shop by the bell tower and claims to have survived a firestorm in Venice, a flood in Genoa, and the plague twice, once by luck, once by onions. He's clearly a liar. But he's charming, and that's nearly the same thing. You speak to him briefly. He says, "You have the look of a man who used to wear a crown." You smile. Something heavier. Before he leaves, he presses a note into your palm. It's folded paper, old and soft with time. When you open it, your breath catches. It's blank, except for one spiral, drawn in dark ink. Beneath it, cycle 23 pending. You crush the paper. You burn it. But it doesn't stop the chill from crawling up your spine. Later, you sit by the Arno again, watching the barges drift past. A child tosses a paper boat into the water. It spins, catches a breeze, and dances like it's got somewhere important to be. A figure in red watches from across the river. You say nothing. He says nothing. The next morning, the silver mask is back, at your door, wrapped in cloth, clean, waiting. You don't touch it. You leave it there. By midday, it's gone again. But you know what that means. The city is healing, but the world isn't done with plague. Not yet. Somewhere else, another bell is tolling. Another crowd is watching smoke rise. Another doctor is dying in the middle of a prayer. And soon, someone will need the mask again. Maybe you, maybe not. But definitely someone. You close your door. Sit by the fire. You sharpen your blade, not for surgery, not for violence. Just habit. You boil water. Dry your gloves. Fold your robe. And then you write one more line. I'm not finished. I'm just waiting for the next knock. The flame flickers. The wind shifts. And far away in some distant city you don't yet know the name of, a child is drawing a spiral in the dirt. The knock does come. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. But eventually. You've settled into a rhythm by then, walking the city in the mornings, sharing tea with the tailor's widow in the afternoons, and tending a small herb garden behind the old barracks. Mint, lavender, marjoram. Some things grow best after blood has soaked the soil. You've even started writing again. Not just in the ledger. Letters, notes. Bits of knowledge passed to those who want to learn, the young apothecary, the baker's apprentice, the boy who shadows your walks but never speaks. He watches how you test for heat behind the ears, how you smell cloth for illness, how you touch gently even when gloves aren't worn anymore. You're making copies of yourself without needing masks. That's the plan anyway. Then the knock. Soft. Precise. You open the door. It's a woman in traveling clothes, cloaked damp with road rain boots cracked from the hills. She's older than you expect. Not some fresh scholar, not a young idealist. Her eyes are tired, but focused. She holds out a pouch. You know what's inside before she says it. Signs of fever in Luca, she says. Boils, vomit, 3 dead in a week. The locals are burning rosemary and calling it a miracle. You look inside the pouch. Crumpled herbs, a sprig of something unfamiliar, and a spiral drawn on rough parchment. You close the pouch and stare at the silver mask on your shelf. It hasn't moved, not on its own, but it's always there, waiting. She watches you. We need someone who remembers what to do. You sit, because standing feels like a lie. I'm not ready, you say. She nods. You won't be. There's silence between you. Not awkward, just true. Finally, you speak. What's your name? She hesitates. I go by Junia now. You smile faintly. Cycle 21. Her eyes flicker. 20. Of course. So that's the rhythm. One replaces the next. Sometimes faster, sometimes slower, sometimes forever incomplete. She stands to leave, but you stop her. How come, you say? But not yet. She nods. There's still time, she replies. But not much. She vanishes into the morning fog. You don't follow. That evening you take the silver mask from the shelf. You dust it. Oil the leather straps. Fold it gently into a linen wrap. You place it in your travel bag. Not out of duty, out of choice. You step outside and look at Florence one more time from your doorstep. Smoke from the hearth. A stray cat watching you with half interest. A church bell tolls not for death, but supper. You know you'll miss it. But you also know what awaits in Luca. The coughing, the spiral marks. The little girl with red cheeks and trembling hands, whom no one yet realizes is already carrying the fever. You know it because it always begins the same and always ends the same. But maybe, just maybe, you can stretch the middle this time. You write one final note and pin it to the inside of your door. Gone to teach what Florence taught me. If I don't return, be the next knock. Then you walk through the quiet alleys, across the Arno, toward the road that will lead you through hills and forests and into the arms of yet another dying city. Your boots are old, your hands ache, your heart is still full of questions. But you walk anyway, because you are what the world made you, and because the next cycle has already begun. The road to Lucca is long, and you take it slowly. You no longer march like a man on mission, but like one returning to something inevitable. Your pack is light dried herbs, bandages, a water skin, a scalpel, and the mask carefully wrapped and tied with twine. You haven't put it on yet. Not here, not in the fields where the air is still sweet with spring rot and wild chamomile. A few travelers pass along the way. A tinker offers to trade you a carved spoon for a story. You give him one about a boy who refused to die and ended up teaching the whole city how to survive. He laughs and gives you 2 spoons instead. You sleep one night under a crumbling stone bridge, your head resting against your boots. Owls keep watch. The wind hums something old and familiar. It almost sounds like a lullaby. In the morning, you see the first signs. A red ribbon tied to a gate. Then a spiral painted on a well. Then silence. That's how you know you've arrived. Lucca isn't dead, not yet. But it's quiet in that awful way cities become when everyone is waiting for someone else to move first. Doors half open, markets abandoned. No shouting, just whispers. You walk through the outer streets. People see you. Some retreat, others stare. You haven't put on the mask, but they still know. They always know. You knock at the mayor's house, no answer. You find the local apothecary, empty, still stocked. That's a bad sign. Then you visit the church. Inside, you finally find her. Junia. She's kneeling by a child's bedside in the vestry, whispering something you can't quite hear. The child moans softly, sweating pale but alive. Junia rises. You took your time. You didn't say it was already this bad. She shrugs. You'd have come anyway. You kneel by the child. Feel the forehead. Hear the lungs. The signs are there. Not plague. Not quite. But something close enough that the people think it is. And in these times, perception is half the disease. You set to work. Over the next hours, days, you forget time again. You prepare tinctures, boil cloth, burn straw bedding, comfort mothers, bury the ones who don't make it. You teach a boy to test for pulse. You teach a woman to wash her hands before she eats. You write new pages in your ledger this time, less about symptoms, more about instructions. A recipe for time-steeped compresses. A checklist for signs that are not plague. A sketch of what to look for in the eyes before it's too late. One night, Junia finds you sitting on the steps outside the abbey, your hands raw and your voice gone from whispering comfort. You're doing it again, she says. You don't look up. Doing what becoming the symbol. The mask. You've barely slept. You glance at the bag beside you, the silver mask, still untouched. I haven't worn it once, you say. But they see it anyway. You finally meet her gaze. What if they stop seeing people and only see masks? She sighs. Then we teach them differently. She sits beside you. A moment of quiet. I won't do this forever, you say. She nods. You won't have to. The next day, a child draws on the wall of the abbey with charcoal. Not a spiral. A face. Your face. Not masked. Just tired. And smiling. You leave it. That evening, you finally open the bag. Not to wear the mask, but to pass it on to a girl named Luce, who's watched everything you've done for days and finally dared to ask if she could learn. She holds it carefully. You tell her she may never need it. But keep it anyway, you say. Why? In case someone forgets what help looks like. And she nods. She understands more than most. That night, for the first time since leaving Florence, you write not in your ledger, but in a letter. Folded, sealed. It reads, to the one who wears the mask next. This isn't about being brave. It's about showing up. Learn from the silence. Question everything. And if you're afraid, good. That means you still know what's at stake. Keep going anyway. The last who was not the last. You tuck it into the mask's lining, just in case. The fever in Luca recedes. Not completely, not magically, but gradually like a tide pulling back to reveal what it left behind, graves two shallow doors boarded too late, and a city that now breathes through its teeth instead of its lungs. You stay until the coughing stops echoing through the bell tower, until mothers stop grabbing their children when someone sneezes, until the markets open again tentatively and the butchers stop selling prayers along with their meat. Then you walk. No fanfare, no thanks. Just you, a weathered coat, and a satchel with fewer tinctures and more folded letters. You leave Luca before sunrise, before the mask is missed, before the next illness arrives and someone has the idea to carve a new spiral on the gate. You take the long way home, through valleys blooming with yellow flowers, along roads forgotten since last year's panic, through a field where someone has built a crude statue of a plague doctor out of driftwood and string. You pause beside it. Someone has tied a note around its neck. He saved my mother. You leave a second note beneath it. He learned from yours. Then you move on. Florence comes into view like a painting hazy pink, dusted with morning smoke. You'd forgotten how soft it looks from a distance, how it curls into the hills like it belongs there. You arrive at the city gates. The guards recognize you, not by name, but by presence. You nod. They let you through. Questions. The streets have changed. Shops rebuilt. New stalls in the market. A child runs past, wearing a paper mask, with feathers glued to the nose. Her brother laughs, chasing her with a ladle. You turn into a familiar alley, where the weaver's assistant now keeps a proper sign and an actual helper. She waves when she sees you, then nudges the boy beside her. He bows awkwardly, like he's just learned how legs work. You stop by the monastery. The bell tower has been painted. A new color, deep blue. You remember when it rang every hour for the dying? Now it chimes for weddings. You climb to your old room above the tanner's shop. No one's moved in. Everything's where you left it. Even the charred corner of the desk where a candle once tipped during a fever dream. You sit on the edge of the bed. Let the silence return. But this time, it's your silence. The restful kind, not the waiting kind. You take out your ledger. The new one is nearly full. You flip to the last page. You write, I came back. I didn't think I would. You pause, then add, not whole. But still myself. That night you walk the streets without purpose. Just for the motion. On the bridge you see someone watching the water. You think just for a moment it's the man in red. But when he turns, he's just a student. Nervous, thin eyes filled with questions. He holds a packet of herbs. His boots are new. He's wearing a hand-stitched robe. Excuse me, he says. Are you? The one who wrote this. He hands you a copy of your own instructions. The ones you left in Luca, carefully transcribed, smudged with fingerprints and candle wax. You nod. He lights up. I want to do the same. Help people. But I'm not sure if I'm ready. You look at him. You're not. He deflates slightly, but that's why you'll survive it. You hand him back the page. He bows. Too deeply. You stop him. Don't look up to me. Why not? Because then you'll forget to see the people around you. He nods. Slowly. He walks off. You let him go. You stay a while longer watching the moon smear itself across the river. You whisper to no one in particular, I wasn't the last. And somewhere, maybe tomorrow, maybe a century from now, someone else will wear the mask. And they'll find the letter. And they'll keep going. Because we always do. You spend the next days in the kind of quiet that doesn't feel like waiting, but like living. You return to old places just to see what they became. The cemetery where you once carved names into a monastery wall now has neat rows of headstones. Not fancy, just names. Dates. The occasional scratched-in phrase like, she was kind, or he always shared his bread. These feel more honest than any prayer. You kneel beside one that has no name, just a spiral etched in charcoal that never washed away. Someone has left a single glove beside it. A child's glove. You whisper thanks, though you don't know who for. Or maybe you do. You visit the apothecary again. The young woman who took it over now has shelves twice as full and a ledger of her own. She offers you tea. You accept. She tells you about a new sickness near the border. Not plague, just rot in the lungs. Winter stuff. Nothing to fear. You smile and correct her dosage for thyme extract. She writes it down like it's scripture. Before you leave, she hands you a folded cloth. Inside a fresh beaked mask. Simple. Unpainted. I thought maybe someday someone would need it again, she says. Not you. Just someone. You take it. Not because you'll wear it, but because you know exactly who will. That afternoon, you return to the old square where once you were cursed, thanked, and mistaken for death in a hat. It's a festival now. People laugh. Music rings off the cobblestones. One merchant is selling plague cakes, honeyed bread shaped like beaked masks. They're hideous. You buy 3. Children run by with sticks for swords. One stops and points at you. You're the doctor, you freeze. But he laughs. The one in the stories. My sister says you fought rats with fire and made the moon go away. You raise an eyebrow. Did she say that? He nods. And that you turned into a cloud when you died? You crouch. Does that sound true to you? He thinks for a moment. No. Why not? Because you're standing right there. Fair enough. You give him one of the plague cakes. He runs off victorious. That night, you take the long way home. You pass the weaver's door, closed for the evening. A candle glows behind the window. You pass the tanner's yard, empty. The earth no longer smells like iron and vinegar. At the bridge, you pause. The student from before is back. This time, he wears the robe a little more confidently. He sees you and nods. Then he lifts something from his satchel. A mask, not silver, not porcelain, his own. Cloth and paste. Painted with delicate brushstrokes, half beak, half feather. He holds it toward the moon like it's a question. You nod. He understands. He puts it on and walks away. Not toward home. Toward the next city. The next sickness. The next spiral. You watch him until he disappears into shadow. Then you sit on the bridge and open your ledger. You turn to the last blank page. You write he was ready. Then you close the book. Not forever. Just for now. The wind lifts through the arches of the bridge. You whisper a blessing to no one. To everyone. And somewhere far from Florence, beyond hills, you'll never walk again. A child's fever breaks in the night. And a new doctor arrives at dawn. The winter arrives soft this year. The winds roll in slowly like they're testing the streets before committing. The people of Florence take notice. Windows are sealed early. Cloaks are aired out. Herbs are hung in bundles from door frames, not just for healing, but for comfort. For memory. And you stay. For now. You rent a room above the scribe's shop this time. Your old quarters over the tanners were finally taken by a young couple with a baby who screams like a night on fire. You're happy for them. You rise each morning at dawn. Boil tea. Stretch your legs. Sharpen your knife, not for surgery, but for peeling apples. You've become known for your slow, careful way of preparing them. The fruit seller now saves the soft ones for you. You've stopped carrying the mask entirely. The ledger, though, that still comes with you. Everywhere. It's smaller now. A new one. The others are packed neatly in a wooden box beneath your bed, wrapped in waxed cloth. Labeled not by title, but by the cities they survived. Pisa, Florence, Lucca. The fourth is blank. Waiting. One morning, a knock. You open the door to find Junia again. Her cloak is wet from snow, her face wind-burned, but her eyes still steady. Cycle 23 has been recorded, she says. You nod. And 24 scouts are watching, she replies. But there's no sign. Not yet. You hesitate. Will there always be another? She doesn't answer. You both know the truth. She hands you a package. It's heavy. You don't need to open it to know what's inside. A new mask. A different style. Cloth-lined. Smooth wood. Short-beaked. Just in case she says. You place it on the table and offer her tea. She stays the night. Says nothing more about the mask. You don't ask. In the morning, she's gone. You walk the city that day without a route. Past the baker's he's teaching his son to knead dough now. Past the apothecary she's experimenting with peppermint this week. Past the weaver's she's hung a red ribbon above her door. Not plague, just celebration. And eventually, you find yourself in a part of town you rarely visit. Narrow streets, cold stones. The buildings lean close like old men gossiping. You pass a door painted with a spiral, fresh, your stomach knots. You knock. No answer. You push gently. Inside, it's quiet. A boy lies on a cot, breathing shallow but rhythmic. His mother sits beside him, eyes red from crying. She looks up as you enter. Are you? You nod. She gestures to the child. They said the fever would pass, but it hasn't. He started coughing last night. You kneel beside the bed. Feel his forehead. Hot. Too hot. You check his throat, his skin, his fingers. It's not plague. It's something simpler. You smile. He'll be fine. She sobs, half out of relief, half from exhaustion. You open your satchel. From the bottom, you draw out a cloth bundle. You unwrap it slowly. Inside a bundle of dried mint, rosemary, and valerian root. You steep a small handful in hot water. You pour it into a chipped cup. You let the boy sip it slowly. His breath eases within minutes. You leave the mother with instructions. Cool cloth on his head. No salt. No wine. Let him rest. He'll be playing in 2 days. She hugs you on the way out. She doesn't ask your name. You don't give it. Back outside, you write the boy's name in your book. You draw a small star beside it. No spiral. Just light. That evening, you return home. The fire is low. The mask remains untouched on your table. You add a page to the fourth ledger. You write, there will always be another knock. But not every knock is the end. Sometimes it's just a boy. Needing sleep, needing help, needing hope. You place your pen down. And for once, you let yourself believe that what you're doing, what you did, was enough. At least for tonight. The mask remains on the table for days. You walk past it every morning, tea in one hand, ledger in the other, pretending it's just another object like the bowl where you keep your apples, or the candle stub you always forget to replace. But it isn't. It never was. You still don't touch it. Instead, you focus on the city. Florence continues its slow bloom back into life. The rhythm is different now, softer, more deliberate, as if the city itself remembers how fragile its heartbeat had once become. You help when asked. You walk the alleys with your ears open, not your tools. You're known now not as a doctor, not even as a name, but as the man who listens. One day a child brings you a drawing. It's not of you. It's of herself holding the hand of a tall, masked figure. Beneath it she's written, "He made me less scared." You pin it to the wall beside your window, right next to a page torn from your own ledger that says, "That's all I ever wanted." But the peace doesn't last forever. It never does. The first sign isn't a knock or a letter or a stranger in a red coat. It's your own body. You wake with a chill, not the usual ache of age or exhaustion. Something deeper, sharper. You try to stand, your knees falter. You sit, wait. It passes. Barely. You tell yourself it's nothing. A draft, a cold breeze, a bad night's sleep. But you know better. By midday, your breath comes short. You drink of water. You try broth. You wrap yourself in the blanket Junia left behind the last time she visited. But the cold lingers beneath your skin. That evening, you light a candle and open the drawer where you keep your old ledger. Not the new one, the first one, the one that smells like vinegar and ash. The one that holds names you can barely remember writing. You flip through the pages slowly. So many lost, so many you tried to save, so many you couldn't. You reach the final page. You stare at your own name. It's still there, unstruck. You add a mark beside it. Not a cross, not a spiral, just a small dot. Then you close the book. You lie back in your chair. You stare at the ceiling and wait. But death doesn't come. Not that night. You wake again, breathing shallow, but breathing. You light another candle, take the ledger, and begin writing once more. You write, "I thought it would end here. But I've thought that before. Perhaps this is not the final hour. Perhaps this is the one before it. And that hour will wait, because I have one more page." You smile. Then you cough. It's sharp, deep. This time there's blood. You stare at it. Then back at the page. You write one more line. "If I die tomorrow, let me not be remembered for how I died, but for how I kept showing up." You close the ledger. Outside, the city sleeps. Above you, stars blink behind a veil of low clouds. And on your table, the mask waits. Not cold, not ominous, just ready. Whenever you are. You don't die the next day. In fact, you get better. Not all at once and not in some heroic, roaring return to strength. Just a little more breath each morning. A steadier hand by midweek. By the fourth day, you find yourself cutting apples again, not for sustenance, but for the comfort of the motion. The city seems surprised to see you back. You hear whispers in the market. "Wasn't he gone? I heard he collapsed. I thought he went to Venice." Someone leaves a fresh loaf at your doorstep. No note. You break it in half and give the rest to the courier boy, now taller than you remember. You sit with the mask again, not touching, just looking. You wonder if it's waiting or watching. That night, you dream. It's the first time in weeks. You're back in the Abbey in Lucca, but everything is reversed. Windows in the floor sky, on the ceiling, people walking upside down. You're tending to a patient, but when you pull back the sheet, it's you. Still breathing, still staring, and your mask hangs in the corner, cracked and half weeping sap. You wake with your hand over your heart. The fire's out, but you're not cold. You rise, walk to the window, and throw it open. The night air is sharp but fresh. You take the deepest breath you've taken in months, and you smile. You don't write that day. You don't need to. Instead, you wander. No path, no errands, just curiosity. You watch a group of children building a plague doctor out of snow. He's got raisins for eyes and a beet for a nose. When one child shouts, "The doctor's here to save us," they all collapse in melodramatic agony. You laugh, and they look up, recognize you. One girl walks over and hands you a raisin. You pretend it's a cure. She believes you. In the town square, a man reads from a scroll about the great teachings of the masked ones. It's completely wrong. He claims plague was banished with garlic-stuffed shoes and screaming at mirrors. But the people nod solemnly, as if he speaks truth. You don't correct him. Some myths are softer than the truth. You stop at the monastery. The door's open. Inside, the walls have been whitewashed. No spirals, no names. A new beginning. Junia sits by the altar. She sees you. You made it. You nod. Almost didn't. She pats the seat beside her. You sit. For a while, you both say nothing. Then she speaks. Cycle 24 has begun. You nod. I figured. Are you coming? You pause. I think I'm staying. She tilts her head. Even now, especially now. You hand her a bundle. She unwraps it. Your mask. Clean. Whole. She holds it reverently. You're sure no one stays forever. But maybe I've done enough for now. She places the mask in her satchel. Then she stands. She doesn't ask you again. You watch her go the mask, bouncing slightly, as she walks lighter than you remember it being. You walk home through alleys that no longer smell like ash. You light a candle, pour tea, sit by the fire. And when you open your new ledger, you begin a fresh page, not a record of the dead or the sick, but of what remains. You write plague comes and goes, but kindness remains, and so does memory. The page is still wet with ink when you hear a knock. Not hard, not urgent. You open the door to find a young man holding a bundle of dried herbs. He looks terrified. "Please," he says. "My sister. I think she has something." You don't hesitate. You don't grab your mask. You grab your satchel and your kindness and your knowledge. You follow him. Not as the masked doctor, not as the legend, just as you. Because sometimes the scariest thing is not what knocks at the door, but whether someone chooses to open it. And you do. Always. You arrive at the boy's home just as the last orange flickers of dusk bleed out behind the rooftops. Inside, the air is thick with sweat lavender oil and the unmistakable tension of a house holding its breath. His mother clutches a rosary but doesn't speak. His sister lies in bed, curled tightly, face pale, lips dry, breath shallow. You kneel beside her. It's not plague, but it feels like something wants to be. A simple fever, perhaps, a stomach sickness, the kind that sweeps through families when the seasons shift and no one thinks to boil the water or wash the fruit. But fear doesn't care about names. You ask for clean cloth, water, a basin. The mother scrambles without question. The boy watches you with wide eyes. Is she dying? You shake your head. She's scared. But fear looks a lot like sickness when you're lying down. He nods, but doesn't really understand. You squeeze a few drops of lemon balm tincture beneath her tongue. You whisper to her. You hold her hand. Her breathing eases. Slowly. When she finally drifts into something close to sleep, the mother brings you soup. It's watery, barely warm, but made with care. You eat it, because it matters. That night you sleep on the floor beside the fire. You don't dream of spirals or masks or blood. You dream of a house filled with laughter and the sound of spoons against clay bowls. In the morning, the girl wakes up giggling. You check her forehead, cool, her pulse steady. You hand the boy a folded page from your ledger. It's a hand-drawn list: how to spot fever early, how to brew mint for nausea, when to call for help. He reads every word like it's sacred. You smile. Now you're the doctor. He beams. You leave before breakfast. Not because you aren't welcome, but because your role was never to stay. You return to your apartment, find your tea still warm in the cup you never finished. You sip it. The sun streams in. You open your ledger. You write, "Sometimes healing doesn't come from potions. It comes from presence." You pause. Then sometimes the most radical act is simply staying with someone through the night. That evening, Junior returns. You raise an eyebrow. "I thought you left." She shrugs. "Not ready yet." She lays a parchment on your table. It's a map, drawn in charcoal with unfamiliar cities circled. A new frontier. "The sickness hasn't reached them yet," she says. "But it will." You look it over. You go, "And I think I should." You don't answer. She doesn't press. Instead, she reaches into her satchel and places something on your desk. Your mask. Not the original, the one she carried last time. She places it gently, then pushes it across the table. "No pressure," she says. But if you change your mind, you nod. She leaves before moonrise. And again the mask remains, waiting. You sit beside it. You write, "There will always be another spiral. But I no longer need to wear the mask to remember who I am." You pause, then write, "And if one day I do choose to wear it again, it will be because I want to, not because the world forgot what healing looks like." You close the ledger. You sleep well. No dreams this time. Just rest. Because sometimes surviving means letting your guard down. Trusting the world to hold itself for a while. Just long enough for you to breathe. Hey guys, tonight we wrap up a long journey. Not with fireworks, not with a scream or a grand final act, but with something quieter, gentler, something that feels more like truth. The city no longer whispers your name, and that's good. You wake one morning to bird song, fresh bread from the baker's boy on your stoop, and no new knock at the door. The world doesn't need you today. That too is a kind of healing. You light a candle not in mourning, not for prayer, but to warm your hands. You pour tea. You sit by the window ledger, open but blank. For once the blankness doesn't feel like loss. It feels like a beginning. You walk the city without your satchel. No mask, no robe, no burden, just you. The boy from the fever house waves at you from across the market. His sister is bouncing beside him, very much alive, gnawing on an apple too big for her hands. You pause at the statue in the square. It's new. Bronze. Strange. A beaked mask in one hand, a satchel in the other. The plaque simply reads, "The one who stayed." You laugh. Out loud. It feels good. You don't correct anyone. Let them have their story. You sit on a bench beside a woman with tired eyes and calloused hands. She tells you about her goats. You nod, ask questions, smile. Because presence is medicine. Because sometimes the city just needs to talk. Not everything must end with spirals or coughing or ash. Some endings are quiet, some are earned. That night you write one last page. You don't title it. You just let the ink flow. I never planned to survive, but I did. And then I lived. And then I stayed. Not because I was brave, but because no one else could just then. And that was enough. You tuck the ledger into its place on the shelf, next to the others, next to the mask, which stays there, clean, untouched, waiting. And maybe it always will. Maybe it won't. You go to bed early, not because you're tired, but because tomorrow will be soft, and you'd like to meet it well rested. Now, so if you're still here with me, eyes heavy, blanket pulled up tight, or maybe just lying in the dark with your thoughts, I want you to take a moment. Just a breath. In slow and steady. And out. Let the weight of this long, strange journey drift off your shoulders. Let the image of the plague doctor, not just the mask, not just the myth, but the person underneath, begin to fade into something quieter, something gentler. The candle in his room still burns, but the room is peaceful now. You don't hear screaming in the alleys or coughing behind doors. No bells toll tonight. No boots run down cold cobblestones. Just silence. And somewhere deep in the corners of Florence, a breeze carries the scent of rosemary and baked bread. A child dreams of nothing at all, and a cat curls on a windowsill, purring in time with the world. You made it, not because you were ready, but because you showed up. And sometimes that's all the world ever needed from you. So rest easy. You're here, you're safe. And tomorrow,